Oh, I didn't hit the checkpoint. There we go. Just get more enter hops, so we can get to full speed faster. There we go. So now here comes up the trick where we can jump in.
Hello, everybody. We're back. So it is now time for the Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 run. Nerd Squared is back, and this could be a great run, I think. So, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, who is that on his shoulder?
Don't worry about it.
So with that, go ahead and take it away.
Yep. So I just ran the complex a second ago, but in case you didn't see that, I'm Nerd. I run a bunch of different horror games and stuff. Again, a second ago, I just ran the complex, and right here, I'll be running Chapter 2 of Poppy Playtime. With me, I have Mommy Long Legs on my shoulder. This is a plush of her I got from Mob Games' merch store, so thank you, Mob Games, for that. She'll be on my shoulder here. Hopefully she doesn't fall off mid-run. That would be kind of bad. But yeah, I'll be running Chapter 2. If you've seen past HIG events, you might remember that I ran any percent of this game before. But tonight, this time, I'll be running the no major glitches. It'll still be any percent. But this time we'll be running the no major glitches equivalent. Which is a bit longer. There's a bit more content to play through since with this glitch tech for no major glitches, we're not allowed to skip as much of the game. We end up having to do the first minigame and all that fun stuff. We'll get to it when we get to it. A couple things to note. First thing, you'll notice I had a little bit of fun here with the title card. All the like bits of video that play in the game, like this title card background, even the title screen that was just on, as well as all the VHS tapes in the game, which are pretty much one of the game's main collectibles. All the videos that play for that are just MP4 files, so you can pretty easily edit them. In this case, I've changed a few here, like the title card, and you'll probably see a few of those as we go along in the game. I also have a frame rate counter in the top left there because there's a few tricks in this game that are a bit frame rate dependent, and in general there's a few the physics in this game are frame rate dependent, so and 120 FPS is the maximum we allow for runs on the leaderboards, just because if we go above that it gets a little too crazy. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I just have to skip this opening cutscene here, and time is going to start as soon as I start moving. Alright. I also have you don't see it on the stream here, but I have a timer on my other monitor over here. That's for something I'll mention a bit later towards the end of the run. But yeah, we'll get started in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so as I was saying, this is no major glitches. In the beginning of this run, if I was doing out of bounds, I would already be doing a glitch where I get a different type of hand for my grab pack early. But since we're doing no major glitches, I can't do that, so I do have to go through this intro section pretty much as is, although there's a neat bit of speed tech we get to do here. If you crouch when you use those grapple hooks to get across gaps, you get a bit of a speed boost, and also I grab that key there to open this office I have to get into in a second. That's a neat little speed tech you'll see pretty much in this opening section, because there's not that much of the game to play through in any percent, but still neat. So I like doing that. There is another bit of tech you can do called a hyperspeed swing, where if you go to 30 FPS and mash the ever-living crap out of the grab pack keys, you can go across gaps really fast with the grapple hook, but it is a glitch, so it's not allowed for this. So just solve that puzzle real quick to trigger this door to open when I go up in a second. Oh, missed that grapple. There we go. And I'm doing bunny hops here as I go up this vent, which is pretty easy to time. You can just hold down the space bar and you get first frame hops every time. I also just want to showcase this off real quick. So yeah, as you can see, I have a little bit of fun with the tapes. I replaced that first tape with the Skyrim intro, so get to have a little bit of fun with that. So I'll do a quick swing across this gap, which is a little tricky to do cleanly. Nah, I didn't get it. You have to really space at the right time as you go across that gap. Otherwise, you'll just swing really high there and hit that archway, as you just saw me do. And you're supposed to watch an animation play there where you see Poppy get dragged into that pit by Mommy Longlegs right here. But if you can just go into the pit straight away without having to watch that. There's also a strat here I would normally do where I'd save and quit by just loading checkpoint in order to skip that animation of the door powering up, but it's slower to do real time, so I'm not doing it here. So there's Mommy Longlegs, and here's also Mommy Longlegs. She's the main antagonist of this chapter. She just took our green hand, or red hand there, which is the second hand of our grab pack we would normally use to interact with things. We're going to get a replacement in a second, but we have to sit through this dialogue here with her before we can proceed. There is a trick you can do called name skip to avoid having to go through this entire dialogue. But not only is it really difficult, it's also not allowed for NMG, so we do in fact have to sit through this dialogue. So once I get in this next room, I'm going to set up for a trick to get into the first minigame early. To beat the game, there's basically 3 minigames of sorts you have to complete, and we will be doing the first one in this category. But to get in there, you'd have to go into a room where you get the replacement for the red hand we just got. But that's slow. So we're gonna, instead of doing that, I'm gonna take this box here and drag it all the way with me into the game station, which is the main hub of the game. I'm basically gonna prop it in a specific way against a window ledge coming up in order to just barely squeeze through a gap. To avoid having to go through the green hand room. You have to wait for a bit here before the store opens. So you have time for maybe one quick donation before we get into the minigame.
Unfortunately, we don't have any donations, but I did just want to remind everybody that if you did want to donate and get your donation read out on stream, just type !donate. And while you're doing that, you can go ahead and try to choose who the costume that's going to be played next run in the Chaos Theory run. So
Yep.
yeah, if you want to do that, please go ahead and donate and all that junk. Thanks.
Yeah, if you think this run or the previous one I just did of the complex looks crazy, definitely stick around for Chaos Theory because it has a leg up on those two by far. So I just propped that box up there against that barely open shutter. That lets me enter this minigame early. They actually patched that out in a new patch, I think, by putting a fence there so you can't squeeze through there anymore, which I think is kind of funny. So I'm going to drag this cutout here so I can jump on these stairs, or on this railing. I'm going to do a precise jump here. There we go. I just did that to trigger this minigame from outside the arena. And there's an introductory tape that plays here that explains how to do the minigame. So while I'm doing that, I'm just going to set up this vent cover by just popping it right off like that. This lets me exit the minigame a bit quicker once the minigame ends. I'm going to get back up on these buttons real quick here. And I also changed my FPS to 30 there, just so I can drag that cutout a bit quicker to set up for jumping on the railing. So one more over and I think that's good. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to set myself up on this button to make sure I stay on the buttons once this minigame starts. Okay, so now we're about to do the first minigame. This is musical memory. You'll see this guy explain how the minigame works, but essentially it's a Simon Says kind of thing. The game is going to show me a color pattern, and I have to replicate that color pattern by hitting these buttons that appear around the arena, as you can see here. As the minigame goes along, the game is going to add more and more possible buttons for me to hit, and it's also going to start saying the buttons in a faster succession, so not only do I have to memorize quickly which pattern the game tells me to hit, I also have to make sure I hit the buttons quickly to do it optimally. And I'm on the buttons here, so as soon as I'm done with the minigame, I can leave the minigame early through that vent over there. It's a little tricky because you can very easily fall off these buttons, so I have to make sure that I don't fall off the buttons here. If I mess it up, then I'll just do the minigame as intended. This is the hardest part of the run by far. It was just staying on this button, and the most tense part, so let's see what happens. Okay, good. Stayed right on. Okay. So I'll probably go silent for a bit so I can memorize the patterns. Because talking while doing this is kind of distracting. Alright, so you do 5 buttons there as the longest one, and then you move on to round 2. Getting really good patterns there. Just a bunch of blues in a row. Wow. That wave I got a really easy pattern somehow. Alright, so this one can be kind of tricky to memorize because not only are we going to have symbols, also some... Oh wait, is it the next round? Okay, I'm thinking of the next round actually. Okay, so in this round they're going to introduce symbols in addition to colors, but the first 3 are always blue J, W. Or blue J heart, I mean, so it's pretty easy to memorize. But there we go. So the minigame's over, and now we just have to hit this button that's going to appear around right here. This is the kill switch that ends the minigame normally, if you're familiar with this minigame in your casual playthrough. So let's just hit that, minigame ends, and then the vent loads as soon as that little sequence is over. You're supposed to get a paper that gives you part of a train code for the train I'll be using to leave this area, but we don't have to get that for any percent, so we don't have to bother with it. And you're supposed to do a puzzle in this room to lift this statue with a crane to use this elevator so you can get out of the room. But instead of doing that, I'm going to take this ball, jump onto it, and then jump onto here, and we completely skip that minigame. There's just a quick electrical puzzle here. Normally, if you grab that little electrical notch at the bottom there, your hand would deflect off of it. But if you, depending on which hand you're grabbing the notch with, if you quickly press and then press again, left or right click, your hand will stay on the notch that you grabbed, which is helpful, which pretty much trivializes actually a lot of those electric puzzles. So you can do them pretty quick, pretty easily. Alright, so now we have our green hand. We can finally go into this train here. This is our ticket for getting out of here. There's a train code, and it can be here, or a 4-digit code, and it can be any of 24 possible combinations. And normally you just have to plain guess the code, because there is a piece of paper that would tell us what the code is, but obviously we skipped that. So I have a plugin in my timer that tells me what the code is. In this case, I got 2431, so I just entered that real quick, and we're on our merry way. We're not going to be moving for about the next 2 minutes or so. So it's essentially a bit of an auto-scroller. Basically what we'll get here is a long speech from, or not a long speech, but a speech from Poppy, where Poppy, by the way, is this tiny doll we rescue in Chapter 1, and she leads us through the factory in Chapter 2 a little bit. She gives us a speech here where she says we can't quite leave yet, and there's basically some stuff that she still needs us to take care of in the factory. So she's going to lead us down to a branch on this track that'll make the train crash, which leads into the future Chapter 3, which is coming out in March or so. So that'll be pretty fun to see. So while we're going on this train, there's a few people I want to shout out. Kuno Dimitri, so you might recognize if you've watched HIG before. He made the tool in our timer that lets us see the train code and also like the load and move on, all of that. So shouts to him for that. I also want to shout out Noki, who is I believe right now is the world record holder for this category. Around 11.5 minutes, and I have a 12:21 in-game time for that right now. There's also Astral Spiff, who is a big content creator for a lot of indie horror games like this one. And he's done a lot of videos on this game and Chapter 1 of Poppy Playtime, as well as some other games like FNAF Security Breach in the past. And some of his videos on this game, as well as Chapter 1 and Security Breach as well, have been a big inspiration for me, personally, getting really good at these games. So huge shouts to him for that as well. Time is going to be in roughly 10 seconds when I pull this lever to stop the train. Alright, time.
GG.
Yep. So our train just crashed there, and you might have saw a sign somewhere around here. You might even see it in the train here after we crash. Mentions, I think, a play care or something? And that's basically where Chapter 3 is going to be, essentially. Yeah, there's the play care. That's where Chapter 3 is, I think, going to be. It's not very clear where Chapter 3 is going to be or who the monster is, but I think they've been like dropping hints here and there as to who the villain of Chapter 3 is going to be. So, looking forward to that, as I said, around March next year. I also want to... Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you can say what you're going to say.
I was just going to say, sounds like it's going to be a really fun March.
Yeah. Speaking of fun 2023 and Poppy, I'm actually running this game at Awesome Games Done Quick, the 2023 online event. I'm going to be running 100% for that, which is going to be a super sick run. Because, like, the community for this game, with it being a smaller indie horror game, I'd say, it's blown up to heck and back. So getting to represent a big community like that, for something like HIG, which is a big speedrunning marathon, as you might know, it's honestly an honor. So I'm definitely looking forward to that in January.
Well, congratulations on getting into AGDQ. And if you don't have anything else to mention about this run, I think it's time to move on to our final Nerd Squared run of the evening. Going to be the Tom Clancy Splinter Cell Chaos Theory on the DS.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Appreciate it. It runs. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to move the stream back to